In this lesson, we're going to look at how you solve an equation when there's a letter term on both sides of the equal sign. So as you can see in this particular problem, we actually have what we call letter terms. So there's a letter term there, it's got a letter in it, and a letter term over here. So we have a letter term on both sides of the equation. We also have a number term on both sides of the equation, but it generally tends to be the letter term that is the problem, because the idea is to solve this equation for x, and so we have an x on both sides that presents a bit of a problem, and that we need to get those two x's together on the same side of the equation. And the idea at this point is that we can choose either one of them in this problem to begin with. And so I'm just going to choose this one. Now I could have started with the 6x, but I'm going to choose the negative 5x. And the idea is to move this to the other side. Now you can't just pick it up and move it over there. You can't just take a negative 5x and stick it over there. You have to do what you've done in every other problem when you want to get rid of something or move it. You have to add the opposite. And so in this case, our rule or the idea here is that we're going to choose one of the letter terms. So choose a letter term, one of the two. So we have to pick one, and I picked the negative 5x. And again, it doesn't matter which one. Could have chosen either one. It will work either way. So I'm going to choose a letter term, and then I'm going to add the opposite letter term to both sides. Add the opposite letter term to both sides. So the opposite of negative 5x is positive 5x. I'm going to add it to both sides, letter term to letter term. I'm not adding it to the 2 or the 24. I'm taking it from here to get it away from here, to make it go away on this side. I add the opposite, the additive inverse. Whenever you take the opposite and add it to something, it makes it become 0. So this is a 0. And so it goes away on this side. And we have 6x plus 5x makes 11x. 6 and 5 is 11. This would be like there were 6 x's and 5 more x's make 11x. Minus 2, and then this went away. That was the whole idea now, is that becomes 0. And then this negative 24 is all that's left over here. And that's a negative 24, like this was a minus or negative 5x. A minus 24 is the same as a negative 24, and so that just comes down because I didn't do anything to that. And so now what we end up with is what we would think of in the past as a basic two-step problem. And in a two-step problem, the first thing to do now is to add the opposite number term to both sides. So I'm going to add the opposite number term. So this was my first step. Now my second step is to add the opposite number term to both sides of the equal sign. So, and the idea here is I'm trying to get x all by itself. I'm trying to get everything away from x. And so this negative 2 is over here with the x. I want it to go away. I want it to really to move it to the other side. Well, you can't just pick it up and move it. You have to use the additive inverse. A negative 2 and a positive 2 make 0. So the 11x comes down now. And I have a negative 24 plus a positive 2 gives me a negative 22. And that was 11x. And then my last step is to divide both sides. So we're going to now divide both sides by the multiplier of x. So I have the multiplier of x is 11. So I'm going to divide both sides by 11, and I get x, because 11 divided by 11 is 1, x equals negative 22 divided by 11. Negative divided by a positive is negative. 22 divided by 11 is 2. And so my solution is negative 2. And it never hurts to go ahead and put that back into the equation to see if it actually works. So I'm going to go ahead and put the negative 2 back in where it says x. So I have 6 times negative 2 minus 2, or plus a negative 2, equals negative 5 times negative 2 minus 24. So let's work all this through and see if it actually works out. So 6 times a negative 2 is negative 12 minus 2. 5 times a negative 2, negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10 minus 24. And a negative 12 and a negative 2 make negative 14. And 10 minus 24, or 10 plus a negative 24, is negative 14. And sure enough, it worked out. So that's a good way to check. So your first step is always to choose one of the letter terms and then add the opposite of that letter term to both sides. Creating a basic two-step equation, 11x minus 2 equals negative 24, and then adding the opposite number term to both sides, and then dividing both sides by the multiplier of x. And that's our basic steps for solving when we have x on both sides. So let's try this one more time. One more example. Again, just going through the steps. If we have x on both sides, and again, it doesn't matter which one I choose to do first. So this time I'm actually going to choose this one. So I could have chosen this one or this one. So if this is a negative 4x, I'm going to add the opposite, and the opposite of all of this is a negative 4, would be positive 4x to both sides. And so that becomes 0. The 5, positive 5, think of that as a positive 5 coming down. 5 and 4 is 9x minus 76. And so now I have what's basically a two-step equation. So my first step was to add the opposite letter term to both sides, one of the two. You had to pick one. Pick that one. And now if I add the opposite number term to both sides, so we're going to add 76 to both sides. 76 plus 5 is 81, equals 9x. And the 76's go away because I've used the additive inverse to make that happen. And then the third step is divide both sides by the multiplier of x. 9 is the multiplier of x, it's the number in front of x. And so that makes that 1, and 81 divided by 9 is 9, so 9 equals x. And that's my solution, which I'm going to go ahead and check, make sure that works. Negative 4 times 9 plus 5 equals 5 times 9 minus 76. So let's see if that actually works out. I'll just put the 9 in where the x was. So that would be 9 times negative 4 is negative 36 plus 5. And 9 times 5 is 45 minus 76. And so if we take 36, negative 36 plus 5 is going to be negative 31. And if you think about 45 and a negative 76, that also makes a negative 31. And sure enough, it works. And so, again, the basic idea is to pick one of the two x terms, or letter terms, and add the opposite of it to both sides to make the letter terms all on one side. And then you end up with a two-step problem where you add the opposite number term, and then you divide both sides by the multiplier of x. So it's really a three-step process to get to the solution for x on both sides of the equation.